Hello and welcome, everybody, to our second day of Christmas Die Hard celebration, where I had to put in Die Hard 2 because I did not want to bring up the Die Hard as a Christmas movie. I am never that guy, and I consider Die Hard 2 more of a Christmas movie. Everybody think I am an interesting person. It's snowing. Yes,
it's snowing. It's snowing.
No, I legitimately, that is the reason I consider it a Christmas movie, because I am from the Midwest, and if it doesn't have snow in it, like, I do not give a shit. Because Los Angeles, Miami, you people don't celebrate Christmas. You celebrate 60-degree nice day in December.
It's like Australian Christmas is not real Christmas. Anyway, guess what? It's Christmas Eve again, and John McClane has to deal with terrorists.
Yes, but this time, John McClane is in a better place. Like, he's back together with his wife. He is... actually has the opposite problem, because he joined the LA police, and now he's going to the East Coast, and now they aren't taking him seriously because he's a West Coast cop. He doesn't know what being a cop on the East Coast is.
Oh, he's forgotten all about that East Coast stuff.
Yeah, but it starts off with him getting his car towed and getting a ticket by a cop who was in a lot of commercials and Sewer Shark, if you watched the Spoonie Experiment and watched him slowly make the connection.
This is
and
Robert,
he's like, Merry Christmas. And gives him a ticket. And that's just kind of the 1990 kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this is Robert. This is our first of several people that this doesn't have as many bit part characters in this. I think this is a more streamlined film. This East Coast cop is played by Robert Constanzo, who is basically what you get is if you can't, or Danny DeVito is unavailable. He's probably
and
most
also
famous.
His boss is played by Dennis Franz.
Yep.
Who was a famous TV cop and showed his ass. That was his big claim to fame for the entire 90s until that whole thing went away.
Yep. He's basically also Danny DeVito's stand-in in various video games and stuff. And is otherwise most famous for voice acting Harvey Bullock in one of the Batman characters in basically everything Batman, because he's a New Yorker. He's a surly New Yorker. What more could you want? Anyway, so he gets his car towed, and this plotline will come back right at the end of the film. More importantly, though, it's John is going to the airport to pick up Holly. Meanwhile, internationally wanted drug dealer, we should indicate the difference that this film is going to have immediately have Raymond Esperanza, who is played by Franco Nero, most famous for playing the original Django in lots and lots of Italo westerns, and being in John Wick Part 2, and being married to Vanessa Redgrave, is kind of is obviously being extradited back to the United States.
And it was just this. It's part of that crossover of Reagan Americanism, but you do know Reaganism kind of caused this, right? But and it is that crossover that kind of gets addressed, but not really. It's once again people who really want a lot of shit ton of money and don't really care because there are no rules anymore.
Yeah, this is certainly this is the big change of post Cold War, pre 9/11 cinema, is villains become less representatives of ideologies and more Ed Harris's character in The Rock, whereby basically it's we're doing the terrorism but mostly doing it for either because we've been wronged by the political system we used to be part of, or because we'd lots of money.
we were forgotten, or there's no war anymore, or there's no this, there's no that. We have to. The only thing is getting money or something Jim in Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
like that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this sort of this borderless sense of like, you know, now that the Cold War is over and America is like the dominant power, like the enemies are not quite ideologies, they are, you know, disaffected individuals or, you know, groups.
Yeah, it is part of that like 90s optimistic futurism that we discussed in the first Die Hard, where it's just like, all war's over, now what do our soldiers do? And this is, we kind of make movies about what if, you know,
American
this is
terrorists.
what our soldiers do. American terrorists, like,
yeah,
which, you know, they kind of have the like stand-in for like Central American, you know, terrorist, which is, you know, what were the terrorists at the time, blah blah blah. Yeah, but I
mean, this is a film. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Also, the main villains are former American soldiers, and as we'll find out, current American soldiers at that time.
Yeah, so I think we'll just say this now. Yeah, this is a very thinly veiled sort of cinematic fictionalization of the Iran-Contra affair, I feel.
Yeah.
Is best to say. Yeah, like, which is obviously like, do we have to explain the Iran-Contra deal to our, or affair to our listeners? I feel like you're probably a little bit better.
Okay, I'm on the spot. If I had like 5 minutes, I could explain it better.
Okay.
But we basically sold arms to Iran, and then Iran like turned against the U.S., and then they found out we did this.
Yeah.
And for, you know, various political reasons. And some people got in trouble, mostly Oliver North.
Yep.
And yeah, that was a whole shit show that, you know, is one of many American controversies that should have brought a whole bunch of people down but didn't, and that would continue to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Oliver North went and got a job on Fox News.
Of course he did.
Because of course he did.
Well, at least it's better than the satire Canadian Bacon, which made him president at the end of the movie, where like the villains of the movie were pardoned by President Oliver North, and that was kind of Michael Moore's like parting shot of like American take that. I mean, it wasn't a good movie, but also Wag the Dog isn't good. They're the exact same movie. One is just stupid, and one just like tries to be ridiculously smart and make you feel smart in knowing the references.
Yes,
but they're both the exact same movie, but that Michael Moore's is stupider means it is more right.
Yeah. 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 So, waiting to meet Esperanza is the disgraced Colonel Oliver North stand-in William Stewart, and William Stewart is played by William Sadler.
And if that name sounds familiar, he played the Reaper in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And if you can get through that first scene where he's naked and doing like Tai Chi and the high kicks and all of that, and not think of the scene where he's playing Twister with Bill and Ted, and then his foot gets in the way and like one of them gags at the BO, then you're a better person than I. And apparently, yeah. So, okay, I'm getting a message that my message was breaking up. So basically what I was explaining is that he was... If you can get through the scene where he's nude and like doing Tai Chi and can't think of him, you know, with his BO playing Twister in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, you're a better person than I am.
Yeah, I mean, he's very good. He's also like also in the Shawshank Redemption and like other stuff. You know, he is. I'm surprised this guy didn't appear like in more action movies. I mean, also he was like he also was told he was too young for this and basically re-auditioned you know, in makeup as a 70-year-old, which is like a hell of a move.
Yeah,
he's good. Like, this is the problem.
Yeah.
I feel like
I am less like structured than you are, so I feel like I'm getting to the, you know, whole history and this late, but this was far more of an action thriller, straight up action thriller than like Die Hard was. I mean, like Die Hard was a big hit and a lot of people liked it, but it didn't have that legendary aspect of it yet. So like the thing was, they called it Die Hard 2, Die Harder. They got Rennie Harlin on it, who would become this big action director, married Gina Davis and did a couple films with Gina Davis, including Cutthroat Island, which was the biggest flop in history at that time and would last for about, 20 years until John Carter?
Yeah, I mean, it remains still one of the biggest box office bombs of all time.
Yeah.
It also basically destroyed, the pirate movie for, about a decade. Yeah, and he made Cliffhanger, which is fine, and...
Cliffhanger is good, Long Kiss Goodnight is good, and he's made a couple other movies that are alright. They're pretty good.
He also made Exorcist The Beginning, which is very, very
The Beginning,
bad.
yeah. It was just one of those things where Fox didn't like whatever Paul Schrader was doing. And so they're talking to directors of how to fix this film. And then they talked to Rennie Harlin, and he's like, well, if you give me $10 million or whatever, or what was it, $30 million turned out to be the final budget.
Yeah.
I'll just reshoot all of it. And that's the plan they went with. And that movie, I don't think was profitable.
Nope.
And definitely neither was when they released the original director's version, which was on went to 5 theaters or something. Nobody saw it, and it was unceremoniously dumped.
Yeah, Dominion is an okay film. It is peak Paul Schrader being Paul Schrader. It made $250,000. It did not do well, but it's at least an interesting piece of cinema, if tremendous.
Yeah, or just one of those things on how different people can make the same movie differently, or something like that. It's more academic than they are good movies.
Yeah. Paul Schrader could make Deep Blue Sea. I don't think Rennie Harland could make Mishima Life in 4 chapters. Put it like this. Rennie continues to find himself very, very busy, largely making films for the Chinese market, and sort of horror. And he's a very proud Finn, and is trying to make has been trying to make a film about Sibelius for about 15 years. So he's unlike John McTiernan, he is still busy, which is fine. It's he is a very proud.
Yeah,
he's a proud.
I think it's just because he's working in a lot of Far Eastern, because that's where the mid-budget movies are. The mid-budget movie has kind of disappeared. You either get $300 million budgeted movies, or you get the things that go directly to Netflix, which are all of the rom-coms and the comedies and the stuff that costs $5 to $10 million. That they go directly to Netflix. They don't get theatrical release. You have to have The Fall Guy to get a comedy that gets a release, which is actually an action movie.
Yeah, this is the thing. Mid-budget films kind of don't get theatrical releases anymore, because you either get the Paranormal Activity. This film literally cost £2 and a stick of gum to make, or a theatrically released film now, unless it's Art House or has a something like Netflix or Amazon Prime behind it, or is gunning for award season, it's straight to streaming with you. Straight to streaming with you. You're not under $90 million. Whoops, guess you're going straight to streaming.
Yeah. It's much more of a straightforward movie. And as I did my research on all the people. It was a shit show podcast, crack.com, the movies that made us. And now it gets tagged as the least Die Hard of the Die Hard trilogy, which means it's still good, but it's the one I'm going to watch the least out of them. And crack.com's Daniel O'Brien did a rundown of why it's the least. And Daniel O'Brien is the person my wife most thinks I'm like of like internet famous people. There was a guy on like a cake show, like Cake Boss or something like that. I can't remember that I supposedly act very much like, but Daniel O'Brien is very much talking film, and like he did an obsessive compulsive disorder on White House Down is the only Die Hard clone that is left to make. For various reasons. One, Roland Emmerich did not care about 9/11. He just made this movie. Who gives a shit? But he also considers Die Hard 2 the least Die Hard of the Die Hard original trilogy because John McClane is happy. He is in good situations with his wife, and he is much more of an action film guy, even though he is still, it's presented as a normal person, but they like the extreme stunts, like the grenades in the plane and he hits the ejector seat, which would be ripped off in Goldeneye. We both love that film, don't get us wrong.
We do.
Like James Bond is very much reactionary and not revolutionary. Even though it is the biggest action franchise in the world.
Yeah, and obviously you get Die Hard with a Vengeance, which sort of basically mostly because it's directed by John McTiernan, kind of goes back to McClane being on the back foot and kind of like if you've never, I'm not going to spoil the big twist of Die Hard with a Vengeance, but there is very little in Die Hard with a Vengeance where John is acting as the typical action hero. He is like constantly on the back foot, and Die Hard with a Vengeance also goes, do you know what we're gonna have? We're gonna have a villainous British person, which it's got Jeremy Irons in it, who's great.
But Die Hard with a Vengeance, I think, is just a half an hour too long. It has one extra twist, and it just gets too long. And I'm just like, I've had enough of this movie, and it's still going for one more sequence.
Yeah.
And that was my big problem with Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like, everything else is fine. It's just like, my God, did you really have to go
one more twist,
that one extra thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the second best of the Die Hard film. I mean, I like Die Hard 2, but Die Hard 2 feels like a standard action movie. It feels like, this is going to sound like a really strange comparison. It feels like the same sort of weird early installment strangeness with like the Zelda games, where they make obviously the original Zelda, and then they make Zelda 2, which is just this side-scrolling thing, and it's like we don't really know what to do with Die Hard, and oh shit, it's a really big success, and everyone wants more. Fine, Die Hard 3, basically do the same thing as Die Hard 1.
But at the time that it was different from Die Hard 2 meant it was better, because it was quote-unquote a better thriller, or just like more of the action movie they came to expect. Like, as I said it in Die Hard 1, like, Siskel and Ebert loved Die Hard 2. It was better in every they considered it better in every respect. And like, I prefer watching Die Hard 2 just because, winter, and the winter is a character because it is, Christmas Eve in at Dulles Airport in Washington, and there's a huge snowstorm.
DC, I think we should.
Yeah, Washington DC. Yes,
not Washington State.
Yes. There is one good line from like this movie called Speed Zone or something like that, where I'm going to Dulles Airport. Why are you going to Fresno? Why do you think I'm going to Fresno? Well, you said the dullest airport. And that's the one line from a terrible movie that has been long forgotten and should be long forgotten, because it makes Cannonball Run look good.
God.
If that tells you anything. But yes.
Me.
But anyway, that's the one thing I have to say when we bring up Dulles Airport. But so the weather is a character in this movie. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing for if you want to do a Christmas movie or something to watch in winter.
Yeah, you got to have snow. Come on.
You got to have snow. And they did intentionally write more one-lines for John McClane, but, they kind of I don't know if they ironically feel less, natural.
Yeah, which is
I had
ironic.
a better, smarter word, but natural is what I'm going to
forced. They definitely feel a lot more like, it does feel like there's more forced for laughs in here. Like,
yeah.
So
like
obviously
all the arguments he has with himself, like, oh, you're doing this again. It has that, well, we're in a sequel, here we go again lines. It has probably one too many of them.
Yeah. So anyway, Colonel Stewart, obviously, Oliver North stand-in for this evening. He's obviously supported Esperanza because Esperanza is, it's the Iran-Contra deal.
He's paying him a shit ton of money.
Yeah. And obviously, just so happens that a couple of Stewart's men are going into the restricted bagging area. Obviously, there's the film also introduces.
We're going to come to this point that, technically speaking, like 95% of this movie is bullshit on everything.
Oh, completely.
From how airports work, from how planes work, how their systems work, and how guns work. For this specific, they're saying like Glocks are porcelain guns that can go through X-ray machines. Yes,
Nope.
there are parts of Glocks that are porcelain. They are enough steel. They are mostly steel because that's how a gun works. Like, if you don't have the steel and the metal parts of a gun, it will break.
Yeah.
And
this is before 3D printing guns could be done, basically.
Yeah, you can have ghost guns, but they're not stable and they're not accurate and they're not. I mean, somebody could show me this, but like.
Yeah.
I don't know this through experience, but I'm an American and I have been like up to my neck in gun shit, even though like I only like guns as in like fictional stuff. Like if a tactical RPG suddenly has like rifles and stuff, I like that because it adds a new level and I think that's fun. And it's the only way I could beat Final Fantasy Tactics because we had Sid and he breaks the game. But like in real life, guns are just like mostly people who are not good enough to like, or just not confident in them enough.
Yeah,
getting a weapon to protect themselves so they don't have to think about it. Yeah. But when you take the thinking about it out, that makes it more dangerous. And I hate guns. In real life,
the British, and obviously I'm British, so we don't. Yeah, and I'm British, so we don't have them. This is like, the thing is actually ironically with Die Hard 2 is like Die Hard 2 is like completely unmakeable outside of that like space from like the early 90s to obviously the big to late 2001. It's like you could not make this film in 2001 because nobody is going through airport security with a gun.
Like. With a gun, and also they aren't going the lax ID checks, and people can just hang out, here, and there can just be the press.
Yeah,
they're just the press hanging, like after you've checked in, the press can just hang out there. Which we have the good reporter, who oh hey, John McClane, I recognize you.
Yep.
And
that thing that happened 2 years ago. Yes.
That thing that happened, and it's just like, how can the same shit happen to the same guy twice? Again, one of those lines, but
ironically, it's actually it's almost released exactly 2 years after Die Hard, so it is actually almost 2 years in real time and in obviously the film's fictional chronology, which is a nice touch, I feel. Yeah. Anyway, so obviously a firefight ensues in the baggage sorting area. Obviously we get another John one-liner where his gun is halfway to I can't remember where it was, somewhere in America. He kills one man in the bagging area, and they just let the press in to have a look at this dead. He's been shot in a firefight with like an off-duty cop. Yeah, just come in and have a look. Do you know anything about this guy? Oh, Mr. McClane, you've just shot a guy. It's like, yeah, and it's like, and it's here that we.
The gun disappears, his ID disappears, so he is very suspicious. and the police around him don't like this because it's Christmas. They've already got enough stress, and you don't need to be adding to it. But then John gets the idea of fingerprinting this guy to find out who he is, and then he faxes. Again, this 90s optimistic futurism, he faxes it over. That fax would be unfucking usable because of, like, how, like, we're still going, those printers were still in use. And, like, the resolution would not be good enough to get a fingerprint off that guy. But we're in the 90s, the future is now, so it just works.
Yeah, and we get a little bit of like badinage between, obviously John and this, and also the other thing is like, oh yeah, can I just use your fax machine to like send these prints through while I just flirt with you? It's like this would never fly today. This is like early 90s.
The woman starts off very irritated with him, and then in the very next scene, she's like, "Oh, what are you doing after I close it?" And it's like, "Sorry," and puts up the ring, and it's like, okay.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sort of like Die Hard 2 very much runs on like action movie logic far more.
Yeah.
It is at this point that sort of obviously the plot quite literally the plot starts to sort of like come together, because it's like, yeah, this guy is 2 years dead and has been involved mysteriously with a lot of black bag sort of like American military things. This does not, and obviously McClane goes and speaks to the chief of the airport police, which is Carmine Lorenzo, who's played by Dennis Franz, who, again, is one of these actors who sort of just seems to have ended up basically typecast as police officers.
An East Coast cop.
East Coast cops. Is like he is basically mostly cops, immigration officers, etc. in like, and obviously a long stint in NYPD Blue for like nearly nearly over a decade. Yeah, and he doesn't want to know. It's Christmas. He's busy. Somebody got shot in his airport. Oh, it's just complicated everything. Oh, please go away, Mr. McClane. Go back to the West Coast.
And then there's the good press tries to interview like Colonel Stewart's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, fuck off, you pinko bitch. Yeah. 2 words, fucking sort of you.
The word, have you got any words for us? Yes, 2, fucking you. It's just very, very well done. That's Samantha Coleman, who's played by Sheila McCarthy, who is mostly famous actually for stage acting by the look of it. Yeah, anyway, that's where she's mostly in. She's fine. She said, I feel like the film sort of like needs he needs sort of a foil on the inside, because obviously Holly is sort of stuck on a plane, and
they tried to put Al in this movie. He's the guy he faxes the prints to, but he is obviously on the phone, and he's like, and Al just does this thing, are you shitting in somebody else's yard?
Like, cool. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. See you later.
It says he's dead. Well, he is now.
Yeah, and it's like here's Reginald Val Johnson. There goes Reginald Val Johnson. Thank you for being in this movie. It's at this point obviously that where Stuart's plot starts to come together, because Stuart's obviously also taken over a nearby church and offed the person who runs it, and is now busy setting up something, a rather unfortunate little surprise for everybody on a plane.
Yes.
This sequence is really, really good. It's one of those, like, action movies, obviously action movies do these sort of sequences where, like, you, obviously, the viewer, have, like, got an idea of what's going on. And, obviously, the characters in the film, well, most of the characters in the film, do not. And it's this sort of moment of sort of increasing, like, dread, where it's like, okay, what are and obviously, and then the lights on the runway go out, and everything stops working, and Stuart
and the
arrives.
Terrorists take over the radio.
Yep.
And it's just like it is an incredible reveal, like just the breadth of how much they do.
Oh yeah.
Even if it misunderstands everything about how airport communications work.
I feel there's a rant coming, Joe. Joe, present your angry air traffic control rant.
Well, I don't have like on personal, but it's like one of my backup careers when directing newscasts is getting replaced by AI, which it currently is. Tegna is replacing everything with AI.
Oh, fun!
So some of my friends just got fired, and other people are going to anchorless newscasts, which is just running reporter stories. So
that sounds
there's a very real thrill, but like yes, it is the stress I've been going to, and I can't talk about it right now because I have so much other things on the fire right now. But
fun.
My backup is the quote-unquote less stressful job of becoming a air traffic controller. So it's just like the thing is, like, the airport is not the be-all end-all of communications.
No, the
planes have their own things. The planes have their own communications. You can't just shut those off. And the planes themselves have systems that can verify all of this. It is not just the airport has all of this information. So it, like, most of this is complete bullshit, and like there are various other ways around the communication than what they come up with. So it is like all of it up to like how like the planes themselves work and how the planes look. I mean, this is more like a plane nut thing, but like they will call a plane one thing and they will not have it as another. And like also relevant later, most of these planes do not have ejector seats because where they fly, if you were to eject out of it, you would die anyway from asphyxiation or suffocation or something like that. Like there is no way you would not like all of this is unreasonable. And also, like, for the safety of the passengers, there's no ejector seat in a passenger plane.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like it's there is obviously like the Hollywood suspension of disbelief, and this sort of goes a little bit far with certain aspects of that, I think.
And it but it does suspend that disbelief. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell all of this if you didn't have some personal knowledge of it. Like I have just lived in gun crazy states for 30 years, so I know the Glock thing, and I like airplanes, and it's one of my career considerations. Even though I really don't want to go because like it's less and less staff, and it's more and more stress, and it's even beyond the stress of directing live TV, where if you make a mistake, hundreds of thousands of people are going to see you, or millions, like potentially millions. So it's more stressful than that. So it's not what I want to do, but it is like at the corner of my mind of how things go about. But like the movie, you wouldn't know from watching the movie. Like it is convincing enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get. I mean, one of my pet peeves is like. This is gonna sound really bad. When you have like, it's gonna sound really stupid compared to like your in-depth dismantling of just why the plot of Die Hard. Like, you know how like planes in films always have that sort of same diving sound, and it's like, no, that's not correct. That's a Stuka. No plane sounds like that normally when going into a dive, because that doesn't have a Jericho, like the whole siren system on it. It's like, it doesn't sound like that. I mean, I've got other bugbears about like, various bit like historical inaccuracies in cinema, but like I know sometimes like I have to raise my, you have to occasionally let my brain go, no, this is a silly action movie. Why are you worrying about like the various problems with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's anyway. So Stuart basically has a list of demands of going, yep, you're not going to do anything. We're going to pick up General Esperanza and spirit him away somewhere. You're going to give us a plane and you're going to let us leave again. Yeah, this is a problem.
Obviously,
because
they don't follow that.
Nope.
The first thing they want to do is we have to reestablish communication.
Yep.
And we have to go to this part of the airport, which is under construction, conveniently. And, like, John McClane's like, that's a bad idea. They thought of this. And, but he has to go over there. Like, John McClane is, like, always, like, a moment too late in this movie, like, trying to get ahead of these stupid things.
Yeah, so the plot of this, by the way, just is not actually taken from a thing. It's from a novel called 58 Minutes, which is a 1987 thriller, and is basically it's basically this, but the plane. There's 58 minutes till the plane has to land. The planes are running out. I mean, this is carried through in Die Hard. Obviously, the planes have limited fuel. They are basically in airspace. Anything that they have not got enough fuel to. And it basically does have this very good methodology of this this very good thing of the ticking clock. This is against the clock. You've got to solve this, John, or everybody, these planes start falling out of the air. Of course, John obviously realized, obviously Holly is on one of these planes. Who else is on one of these planes, Joe?
William Atherton Thornburg.
Yep. Yes, he is.
He's back, like the unnecessary character we didn't want.
Yep.
The Toonsman cameo in Speed 2 Cruise Control.
What are you doing? It's like,
what are you doing here?
What are you doing here? He's just there.
To be fair, they do need Holly to do something besides be the person up there and like what she's doing. Like, even though she's kind of the person who is not doing much, she is doing some things in Die Hard 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And, for one thing, it's trying to figure out what is going on. And and to give her a character thing to do, they have them together, and because she hit him, there is a restraining order against her, and they can't be within, 200, 500 feet of each other or something like that. But after that, like, the stewardess who has been, like, taking his shit for 5 minutes is like, champagne?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the film does give Holly more to do, but it's still not very much. That's sort of like, and he obviously decides to then do his cub reporter thing, sort of on the plane later, which we'll get to.
Which is...
Yeah.
Which he is not wrong in doing. It is just the timing that is the problem for the movie. And that, and him being a jackass means it is villain behavior. But it's what a reporter is going to do. What do you want a reporter to do? Not figure out what's going on here?
Yeah.
And not tell people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I mean...
okay, you have... You're asking a reporter to go against the very nature of their job. I'm sorry, that's just not happening. And I realize there's more controversial stuff with Kotaku and like some other things where they promise to keep, the ID secret and treat this with respect that hasn't. Like Natalie Lawhead, which that is a very serious breach of
you've got a degree
trust,
of
but you can't not expect journalists to do their job. You cannot expect reporters to not report.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's at this point that John sort of recruits help from Marvin, who is played by the late Tom Bauer, who is this sort of weird eccentric that sort of basically lives in the walls.
Yeah, he's kind of like the custodian or just like, caretaker for like the entire airport. Like if, I mean, he'd be a repairman, but he comes more off like the caretaker of a property than like any professional person who is keeping the airport running.
Yeah.
But he is just a weird character that allows John McClane and to figure out where he's doing next, what he has to do, and how to figure that out. Like, it is kind of a fault to his character that he is a utility, and they give him some character, but it's all weird old man stuff.
Yeah.
That's very vague. I mean, the character actor plays it fine, but it's kind of, he's more of a utility than a person.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Bauer is otherwise famous for appearing in the very strange Werner Herzog sort of quasi-remake of Bad Lieutenant, which is a very strange film to have alongside Die Hard as one of your most notable roles.
The Nicolas Cage one.
The Nicolas Cage one where he yells a lot. I mean, it's a very good film, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's very good. It's just, like, I did not expect this movie from these people.
No. Anyway, so Marvin basically has, like, an in-depth knowledge of, like, the various bits and pieces of this thing, and the airport has sent Leslie Barnes, who's played by Art Day Evans, who is basically this sort of strange tech guy who sort of, like, is basically the main technician of the place, who is basically has got to go and try and get this antennae in this unfinished section, because nothing is ever finished in the Die Hard world, and there's obviously like and this is like, I feel, the one sequence where it does sort of lean quite heavily into, okay, we know what made Die Hard 1 work, a shootout in unfinished building construction area.
Let's do what Die Hard did again, and that's kind of the most obvious part of it. And
take the SWAT team with you.
Take the SWAT team, and the SWAT team is not prepared at all for this. Nope. And they would recognize it's a kill. Like, it feels like they would recognize more this is a kill box, and that the people working construction obviously aren't who they say they are.
Yep.
But it's. I have been wrong about how intelligent police are before, and how professional they are at their job. So, that is whatever it is. And then we get the reveal of more of these terrorists, which includes John Leguizamo.
Yep. And Robert Patrick.
And Robert Patrick, yes.
Who would later that year go and film be the T-1000 in Terminator. This is a very, like, this is the thing, like, the henchmen in this are, like, a lot of them have gone on to be, like, fairly decently...
At least bigger than the villain.
Yeah, definitely. There's obviously there's a couple of the other,
I mean, Sadler's had a good career. Sadler's had
a good career. I mean, playing Death in Bill and Ted, I mean, has clearly paid the bills, but like you didn't
and
become...
then he would come back in Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yeah.
And he would have like a role where he's actually like playing more of a character than a joke.
Yeah. Patrick O'Neill is also in this. Which is like, basically he's obviously like a largely notable for sports commentator. Which is very strange, like, thing. But as I said, it's very strange. Obviously he is also Shaq's half brother, who's like, obviously very strange, like, combination of people in these. The henchmen in this are fine. The problem is that, like, there are a lot more of them, and B,
they don't have the character. Yeah. Like, they are all former U.S. Special Forces, and they don't have like the same character as the villains of Die Hard. Like, they don't,
Fritz and Co. There's no, like, I'm genuinely, like, John Leguizamo is in this, and I genuinely do not know when I saw John, like, Robert Patrick is facially distinctive enough that it's like, oh, there's Robert Patrick, with his, you know, sticky out ears and, you know, that very sort of.
And then he has the flat top that he had.
Yeah,
for
the flat top. The flat top, and it's like everybody else is like, you know, there's no like, you know, Al Leung sort of like henchmen, because they're sort of basically this sort of apart from obviously Stewart, they're all sort of like this a mass of people who are just like are slowly whittled down. Like, honestly, the sort of Esperanza is more like the lead henchman, because at least he gets to do stuff. And then it sort of complicates things later on. He gets to
have that conversation with the person guarding him, and then he gets to, like, slowly strangle him later.
Yeah.
And he is just like a charming and brutal man.
Yeah, this is before we get into the third co-henchman, which we'll get to in a bit. It's like, oh yes, these other guys. I realised actually about 2/3 of the way. I tell you why I realised the twist on this with We'll carry on with the plot. I'll explain. Obviously, we'll talk about the twist in a bit. So, you know, obviously, General Stewart is not happy with this and crashes an airplane.
Yeah, which is probably the best moment from the movie.
Yeah, in the sense of
it is like, I think William Sadler put it at one point. It was one of his most proud moments of an actor, because, like, he gets on that, you know, folksy accent and then, like, guides the person down, and it's safe, and there's just this horrifying realization of what's happening.
Yeah.
And
it's
definitely. Like, holy shit. And
he's a great villain.
It's a great villain moment, and, like, it sells him as a villain, even if, like, the rest of it is lacking a little bit. But, like, and also that Chief O'Brien is flying the plane.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yes. I've realised that.
From Star Trek Deep Space Nine is flying British Airways. And there's an entire factual error. Well, it's kind of British Airways. It's not British Airways.
Yeah, obviously all of these are, like, they're all sort of, like, serial numbers filed off, like, you know, airlines, because British Airlines, I don't think British Airways would be particularly keen of, like, would you mind if we crashed one of your planes? Like, we might do. We might have reservations about that.
Yeah. So, like, what they do is they change what the ground is for the computer guidance system.
Yeah, the automata.
And so they are going to hit the ground before, which it doesn't work like this. Too technical. I'm not going to get into it. But so they think they hit the ground before they think they're going to hit the ground, which smashes it and completely destroys the airplane.
Really good effects work here.
Really good effects work. Like it is. If it is mostly a thriller, it is mostly a really good thriller. Even if it misses what made Die Hard work at times. But yeah, it is an impressive scene, and it, like, underlines what is at stake and that these villains are a threat. I mean, even beyond, like, the action movie, like, the professionals can't hit shit, and the villains can hit whoever they want except the hero who they keep missing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's sort of here that basically, obviously, Esperanza lands. Well, Esperanza almost lands, and then McClane, like, shoots the plane and sort of wounds Esperanza, and we're sort of like, he's obviously, during this, like, altercation with the people guarding him, the plane's already fairly badly shot up, so he's having to land this, like, completely blind. Which is another actually a really good, really great scene. John is obviously quite not particularly happy about being, you know, the sort of deaths of hundreds of people. Shoots Esperanza, and then Stewart sort of arrives and you know, obviously grabs Esperanza.
Survives, but John McClane
does the golden eye
in the plane, because it is like, it survived enough bullets, it's going to survive a whole lot more.
Yep.
Until
it gets blown up.
Get the idea that they toss grenades in. Now, those are some long-lasting grenades. Like, again, this is...
Oh, God.
This is the one moment where, even if you know nothing about it, it's like, that's not how grenades are supposed to work.
Yeah.
Is that they have, like, this 30-second fuse.
Yeah.
They're set to, like, you know, you have enough time to throw them, but you don't have enough time for your victims to get away. But they have this, like, technically impressive scene where he's trying to figure out how to get out. And, there's an ejector seat. So...
Yeah.
The moment that sells it in the trailer is where he pulls the ejector seat and the plane blows up and he's like going, whoa!
Into the air.
That was the trailer moment that sold the movie to America.
Yes, that's not how ejector seats work. That's not how grenades work.
Yeah. That's not how anything works. And it is so close to the ground, I am surprised, like, the parachute, like... didn't deploy too late, and that he was able to have plenty of time to get back on the ground, which like that is not designed for when you're on the ground.
Nope. It's at this point that the US Special Forces turn up.
Yes.
Yeah, this is where I realised where the plot was going, because, do you remember, Joe, when we talked about a little film called Violent Night?
Yes.
Yes. Do you remember what happened when the Special Forces, or the military, the sort of Black Ops guys turned up in Violent Night?
They turned out to be traitors because they'd been paid off by the other part of the family.
Yes. Would you like to know? Yeah, this is where I went, hang on a minute. I've seen this twist before.
Yeah.
Ironically, in a film that ripped Die Hard off.
Gee, where did they get this plot point? Maybe could it have been Die Hard 2?
It was Die Hard 2. The US Special Forces are led by Major Grant, who is played by John Amos. He's a traitor. He is genuinely just like, he is in this for the money. Oh dear.
And for a while I thought, like, is that another guy I know? Like, is that Tony Todd? And it's like, I know he's too big to be Tony Todd. But no, Joe, you're thinking of The Rock, where he's the guy who gets, like, the Rocket Man one-liner and then launched. That's where Tony... That's the American terrorist in a 90s, Die Hard and wherever.
Yeah.
That's where Tony Todd was. This is John Amos, who, he's had a career, but he hasn't had the biggest career. I expect it to be bigger after this, because, like, he does a good job portraying, I am the competent guy who is going to come in and solve this.
I mean, he was most famous for being in Roots, so, he obviously had done a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he had done a lot of work. But this is obviously, Grant's men, arrive at the church, and obviously we've been sort of vaguely made aware of the twist. It is at this point that John realizes the guns that Grant's men are using are full of blanks.
And I'm going to semi-automatic guns do not work like this, because the guns themselves have to be altered to fire blanks.
Yeah. You can't swap between ammo, is the way this film.
Like, when you are firing a blank, you are not firing nothing.
Yeah.
You have to alter the
mechanism of the gun.
Mechanism of the gun itself. And also, it's gone a while with how a blank killed the main character in The Crow. There is we've had a long discussion of how that exactly worked and what happened. Like, armors, do your job, clean out everything at the end of the day, and blah blah blah. But like with semi-automatic, like, that will hurt you, blanks or not, because you are not firing nothing.
Yeah.
And it would especially not work with how John McClane shoots it at Dennis Franz, and nothing happens to him.
Yeah.
Like,
that's not how it works, as the Lee estate will tell you.
Yes. The and another movie we've talked about, Casino Royale, the 60s one.
Yeah.
An extra, not an extra, but the person playing
Yeah.
the guy faking James Bond got injured because they were shot. Somebody just pulled a prank and shot them in the face, and it was still a gun, so it caused burn marks on her face, and she was, hurt and afraid for the rest of the shoot.
Thanks, Peter Sellers, for that.
Yep, Peter Sellers. You are a jack off as much as you are a great actor.
But anyway, this is not, guns do not work that way. Good night. So anyway, obviously,
the movie, it is convincing enough because they have the blue and then they have the red, and because it's so childishly, done, so a movie audience can get it. John
kind of
McClane
endearing.
figures it out.
Yeah, it's kind of endearing.
It is. I'm like I don't fault the movie. Like, you have to do things so people grasp the idea and it sticks.
There's the only other way of doing that plot thing is for literally everyone to carry two guns, and it's like John will go, "Hang on a minute, why are you both carrying two guns?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, we need extra
something
gun."
More confusing, like you have to get it to where like that you know what what this means.
As I said, this is the thing. This is a more conventional action movie, and it's sort of, I feel, because it's sort of basically being a more conventional action movie, and for a, I don't want to say for lowest common denominator, but it's sort of like there are moments in Die Hard where your brain is like going, hang on a minute, why have they just done that? There is, a little bit more wit and intelligence to Die Hard, to the original Die Hard. There is there's
a little bit more mystery, but there's not as much of the mystery here because they're obviously military people. They have the stone face. They're obviously bad guys.
Yep, they're evil. They're clearly bad guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But it's generally sort of like.
Yeah. And there is a good fight scene when John McClane is coming upon the church because he figures out like there's the power thing out here. This is where they could control it. And then he goes out there first, and then he immediately gets caught by a terrorist guy, and they have a fight, and he stabs him through the eye with an icicle. So using the weather as a character again. But absolutely. It's a very good thriller. It's just like I get the people who are like, this isn't Die Hard enough. And we have to make Die Hard again or something for like the third movie.
Oh god.
Even if like the it's too long, it's too expensive, and it's like it out clevers itself by half. But we need a British person to be a bad guy. You can't have the hey, have you read a newspaper and heard about this Iran-Contra thing? It's like there is a sensibility with this, for it is like it's a clever there are various styles of action movies, and this is definitely one of them. Meanwhile, Grant is obviously everybody's rendezvousing, and obviously Thornburg is just currently just going, this is a little bit suspicious. What's going on here? And proceeds to break the story, and everybody panics. And everybody breaks through the radios in ways you can't break through these kinds of radios. Like they don't have the same frequencies. There's only limited frequencies they can go through when you're like on a walkie-talkie or when you're on a radio communication. Like again, it's like a thing you don't care about, but it's something I'm aware of even in television because wireless microphones work through radio frequencies, and you have to tune them to this mic is connected to this frequency, and that communicates to everything. And there are only certain frequencies you are allowed to, because otherwise it interferes with other things. So like all of these have technical limitations that the plot does not care about. So even like the reporter guy can get in on the airport's communications, where they figure out that they have this beacon they can talk to that, just says, I'm here, but they figure out they can talk to it. And then they tap into it, and then he figures out what's going on. And once they figured out this entire plot, they're about to get all the special forces, but because the reporter, broke the news on the air, and it's being reported at the airport, everybody panics, and everybody runs out in this, frantic thing where they can't, get the cavalry to chase after them.
Yeah, so it is at this point that the good news media obviously come to the rescue because they have a helicopter.
They have a helicopter, and it's like, you want a story? And then they have to approach it, and John McClane has to do the most action hero thing where he has to jump onto the plane. I mean, they do it realistically with John McClane being a person, and even though it is a little bigger in scope than what the first Die Hard was. But,
it's believable, but it is still this is
this is genuinely ridiculous.
Yeah, in a kind of endearing way at this point, actually. It's this is endearingly...
And then we get a good series of fight sequences where he's on this airplane wing, and it's not an ideal place to fight, and people are still trying to shoot him, but they can't. There's the obviously plot point. There's that wing is full of fuel.
Yeah.
So they can't shoot him, so they have to fight him. And it's very awkward at how they do it. And that runway that they're on apparently lasts forever.
Yeah.
Again, another issue you have to put aside is just
I mean, length
like
of
that need long.
Yeah.
There's only so much runway, but also you can't just stay on the runway forever, they're doing, and just keying up. The runway eventually has to end.
Yeah, but, was it Fast and Furious's 5-mile long runway that just keeps going?
Yeah. But that's when Fast and the Furious jump the shark, and it's just what, jumping the shark is really cool. Let's keep doing this. And good for them.
Looks really cool when the sharks jump.
Just as long as you don't put them in a tornado, we're good. But they have actually pretty good fight sequences, and the point that's actually really good is that Colonel Stewart kicks John McClane's ass when they get to hand-to-hand combat. McClane gets a few shots in, but clearly Stewart is trained, and he knows how to beat the shit out of people, and so he does it. But what he unfortunately does is he kicks John McClane to the point where you can eject the fuel, which is not on that particular plane, but so he is able to cut the plane out of the wing. The fuel out of the wing, not the plane out of the wing. God damn it! Plane out of the wing. I'm on a time limit here.
He just wedges his coat. Minutes. Yeah, he wedges his coat into the plane. It's and then obviously
to make sure they can't.
And then Grant has to go out onto the wing and go, somebody stuck a coat in the wing. This is what happens when you fly American Airlines, and this is where other airlines are available.
This is what the baggage people are doing with their lives. And they can't take off, but they're still going full speed, they're trying to take off, which is not how that works. But again, then at the end, John McClane figures out how to release the fuel, and before he's kicked off by Stewart, he gets this trail of fuel that leads up to the plane, and he uses his cigarette lighter, which is not enough to set off jet fuel. There's no 9/11 conspiracies. That's just a cigarette lighter would not is not enough to
aviation
ignite fuel. No. But it's a movie. It's a fucking movie. We're moving on.
Moving on quickly.
And it sets off the plane, and not only blows all of the villains to shit, but it also provides a landing light for all the planes. And it's just and another weird point where that's not how this works is like Holly's plane is in the landing. They've
run out of fuel basically.
They can change to the runway, and they can switch to manual. And like, I've never, even like simmed flying a jetliner, but I think it's not as easy to change its course like that as the movie thinks it is. But it, and then they have to land every plane after it, which is you have to still taxi all of these jets. So eventually there's going to be this corner where they run out of being able to slow down, and all of these jets will just crash into each other. But again, it's a fucking movie, Joe. Stop it.
It's a movie. This really interestingly enough, this has got a technical first in it. The shot at the end is the first time in cinema history where live action footage was digitally rather than traditionally composited in to a matte painting, which is for this final shot on the runway. It's one of those sort of weird little technical things.
Okay.
And the plane
the plane just lands,
blows
and
up.
Everything's happy. There's no. I forgot to mention this in the first Die Hard thing, but at the end of the movie, there is this scene where Holly and John McClane get back together. And then it gets upstaged by when he meets Al, and then it's just like everybody's like, "Oh, it's the real love moment of the film when Al and John McClane meet each other." And they don't have that, but it's just like,
no.
He just gets to meet Holly, and it's just like, "Why does this keep happening to us?" And then Let It Snow gets playing.
Yeah, and then Holly barely appears in Die Hard with a Vengeance 3 years later.
Yeah, and is not in Live Free or Die Hard,
or the other one. As far as I'm aware, Good Day.
I haven't seen it. I haven't bothered to see it.
No, nobody has seen Good Day to Die Hard. Anyway,
To sum up, I am the only person who likes this better than Die Hard. Die Hard is a better movie, but I like this better, especially in this thing, watching it in December for Christmas or whatever you choose to do with your life.
I would say this definitely feels more like this is gonna sound weird. This does feel more like a Christmas movie. I will agree with that, definitely. Like Die Hard 1 seems to have become a Christmas movie by happenstance. Die Hard 2 is
by the will of the people.
Yeah, Die Hard 2 is trying to be a Christmas movie, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it fits me more, especially living in the Midwest and we need snow.
Yeah. You got to have snow in it. It's not a proper Christmas movie without snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And travel problems, because I've had plenty of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of randomly a cop searching my car for drugs because I was extremely anxious because I was on an extremely busy and tight schedule, being delayed by weather. And he thought that meant I was on drugs. So he searched my car for drugs and didn't find anything. And it was just like,
where are your drugs?
No.
You gotta have drugs. You're anxious.
You were misreading anxiety as being high, and that's not the same thing.
No.
So, but anyway, that was Die Hard 2, and my medium defense of it as, better to watch at this time of year than Die Hard, when you can just watch Die Hard whenever you damn well please, because it's just a great movie to watch. Yeah.
I mean, why not both? Why not just watch both of them? They're
you can watch both. You can watch
John
both.
John McClane and his terrible, terrible Christmases.
But I mainly just put it here so we didn't come off like that guy at a party who thinks he's so interesting because he thinks Die Hard is a Christmas movie and wants to argue with everybody about it. Because that's the only part of his personality. That's the only thing he can bring up to talk about people. It's like he can't even bring up so the Jets are sucking this year or anything like that.
Yes, they are. I mean, they are,
no.
but
they are, but
So that's not
You know.
that's an evergreen little bit of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, my personal Christmas recommendation to really, ruin your Christmas is to suggest that everyone goes and sees the film that truly is the best Christmas movie of all time, which is Neon Genesis Evangelion: End of Evangelion.
But of course.
But of course.
And,
More joking aside, my favourite Christmas movie, and like the Christmas movie I will always watch when I put my tree up, is Nightmare Before Christmas. So that's definitely a
and
Christmas
mine
movie.
is The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, which takes
And that's
place
fine.
the week before Christmas.
Yeah.
And it speaks to me, so that's why.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to end this real quick. I am on a time limit. I have got to pick up my own wife in a snowy wonderland. And hopefully nothing goes bad in those 5 or 6 blocks that I have to drive. So
keep us posted, Joe.
Like the mini mart does not have anything for you. Please leave me alone.
We will see you on the next episode of the Thom and Joe show. We hope you have a great Christmas, or or happy holidays, or
happy
whatever
holidays, whatever else. There's no war on Christmas here.
We hope you're diehard.
Whatever you enjoy at this time of year.
We hope your Christmas is free of German terrorists.
Yeah, German terrorists or American terrorists who like money, whatever. No terrorists for Christmas.
No terrorists for Christmas. Yeah. We will see you on the next episode of the Thom and Joe show in 2025. We'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.